right, David Rohrsheim from Uber has arrived. He's in the building. Come on up. A big round of applause for David. Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. Come
Good.
Have a seat.
I'm pumped
Welcome.
to go work at Vino Mofo now.
I got asked this question, David. Did you Uber here?
I did, and I was late, so I made sure to send an SMS to the event organiser so she could track my journey minute by minute, and she knew the minute I was going to be here.
Excellent work, excellent work. So, David, there are so many questions everybody would like to ask you, including myself, but I teased them a little bit at the beginning about the conversation about how did Uber launch in Australia and how did you find your first drivers and your first customers? Can you talk us through that story?
Sure thing. I suppose Uber was at a similar position to Vino Mofo. They were onto something in the US. It was up and running in about 10 cities, and San Francisco was one of them. That's where I was living for 5 years, and it was starting to work. And I had a friend at the company. She said, I really enjoy it. And so I went and met with the team in San Francisco, Travis and Ryan, and said, hey, I think this could work in Sydney. And laid out what I knew about Sydney and how I thought I would get that launched. And they walked out of the room, and then they came back in 5 minutes later and said, let's do this.
Wow, 5 minutes.
So I realised I was a company that likes to make decisions fast. So they gave me the job and then came back to Sydney. And when I joined Uber, it was just the luxury business, Uber Black, which is actually what Adelaide has had until just recently. And so step one is you need both riders and drivers. There were none when I joined Uber. It was just an app, just an idea, and my job to turn it into a business in Sydney first. Go down to the airport, there's a bunch of drivers playing backgammon and smoking and what have you, having coffee, and then you show up and you say, I'm going to change how you do business. And they're pretty dismissive of that at first, but you just got to spend some time with them and just sign up those first few drivers, and it starts from there.
And I want to emphasise, this is David going down to the airport park, right? It's you.
What's so strange about that?
I just think this is what I was saying earlier, isn't it? About we have this perception of entrepreneurs like you're all around the world now in terms of the profile, but you were the first person to go and say, hey, guys, sign up. So you had that passion, didn't you? You had to believe in it, I presume.
So, yeah, I came at it firstly just as a customer. So have a lot of coffees or in Adelaide wines with people talking about entrepreneurship and starting their own ideas. And I'm always trying to figure out why they care about that thing. If they're interested in the money or just interested in entrepreneurship in general, then it's going to go in the wrong direction. So I really want to know why do they care about wine? Why do they care about getting from A to B? And so I'd been in Sydney, King's Cross, 2 a.m, trying to get a ride home, waving a $20 note and not being able to get a ride. So I just wanted to fix my own problem, and I thought I had the opportunity to be part of it. So that's what gave me the motivation.
Yeah. And how did you find your first few customers as well?
On the rider side, it was basically our first 100 users in Australia. There's now well over 1 million. The first 100 users were pretty much family and friends. We'd get on the phone and say, hey mate, I don't know where you are right now, but you need to go somewhere else, and I've got an app that you can use to get there. And yep, a lot of those rides were freebies. We'd give them away. We had a strong conviction that once people tried it once, had the app downloaded on their phone, they put in their credit card, they put in their mobile phone number, and seen the magic work. Press a button, car shows up, drive from A to B, walk away. People get addicted, so we're generally pretty comfortable giving away that first hit for free.
And in terms of the business that you're in, what would you say that is?
I've got a lot of parallels, Andre. I'll tell another story first about names, Uber. I was listening in, and our original name was Uber Cab. And the business got started in San Francisco, and it was just the luxury black car experience. And so the name was Uber Cab, a really cool cab was the starting point. And if you're in the business of change, you've always got a few people that are going to be upset that you exist. And in our case, that was the transport department and folks in there. And we received our first cease and desist letter from the governor of California at the time.
Not Arnie.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Arnie. Oh, awesome. There, frame that. Yeah.
Letterhead from Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, you are advertising a cab service, but you don't have a cab license.
You do the voice.
I think he sent one of his henchmen. So we said, all right, so you don't like us calling ourselves a cab service because we're not, and we don't have a cab license. What if we just drop the cab and just call it Uber? And that was the moment Uber became Uber.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was the first ever Uber cease and desist issue taken care of.
Yeah.
But that's how we got our name, was because someone else didn't want us to call us the previous thing.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of the business, would you say you're a technology company or a cab company or a ride company? What are you?
Yeah, so technology at the start of it. There's still thousands of people in San Francisco working on the app. I personally am in, I'd call it marketing and operations. So there's an idea, there's an app, but I take that idea and go turn it into money, try and find customers and go make it happen. But at its core, like Uber doesn't own any cars, doesn't employ any drivers, we don't own any boats, we don't own any restaurants, but we're helping people connect with all those things.
What's next for Uber?
Well, hopefully operating UberX in Adelaide. That's the next thing on my to-do list. Something that's in the near future. So Melbourne's got Uber Eats now. Press a button, get food. Magic. In the larger cities, there's about 20 of these around the world, and Sydney and Melbourne will be next. What we've observed is, with hundreds of thousands of people using Uber in one city, frequently we'll see rides that look pretty similar. There's someone down at Glenelg wants to go into the city, and there's someone else in Glenelg that wants to go to the city at around the same time. And the data science team said, I reckon we can match those trips up. So with Uber Pool, we'll give you the choice. Like, are you willing to share this ride? And if we can find a match within 5 minutes, then you'll both go in the same car, you'll pay maybe 20, 30, 40% less each, but the driver's now got 2 passengers, and there's now 1 car going along the road instead of 2, which really starts to get cities that are spending billions on infrastructure pretty interested. Requires large density. It requires a lot of people using it so that you can find matches in real time. Carpooling's not a new idea, but if you have to wait half an hour or arrange the ride the night beforehand, people just don't do it. That's been tried for decades. But if we can make it, we can do it in real time. We found very successfully, on a Friday morning in San Francisco, 70, 80% of trips are matched up. It's just people headed 8 a.m. straight into the CBD. So that requires a lot of people using it though, and that's why we are intensely focused on making sure it's easy for both drivers and riders to sign up to the platform, because if you don't have a lot of people doing it, you don't get any of those benefits.
You should hook up with RSVP, do a bit of a joint deal, Get some marriages going along the way.
There's a bit of that, yeah. It happens.
You get Glenn involved, yeah. So we have to move on. We could talk to you forever. I just want to ask one question about Uber is a bit of an idea whose time has come, in that it cannot be held back because the customers want it. So can you talk us through, just, I know it's a big topic, but just the legislation in the sense of how you're getting around this incredible resistance from the authorities, and what is going to happen, do you think? Yeah, crystal ball.
I'm not sure if I can answer the second question, but I mean, I can actually, because unfortunately transport's a state matter, so we've got to have 8 different conversations around the region to get some ride-sharing regulations in place. One of the biggest headaches we've had is this concept that just because there are no rules about something, there's an assumption in our culture, and certainly within regulators, that therefore it's illegal. Until we write a rule saying you're allowed to do that, you can't. And that's a very familiar attitude across Australia, and frankly, you go to schools, you follow the rules, and that's kind of how you grow up. And so people are looking for rules to follow. So we have certainly been out there challenging that and saying, here's this new thing. And the ACCC, the Productivity Commission, the federal government have all come along and said, when new stuff comes along, the instinct should be to watch it and see if it works, and only if something goes wrong, then go put some regulations in place, or maybe establish a test to watch and learn. Whereas we've had a bunch of, the response from a lot of the first conversation I normally have, unfortunately, is with the policeman. We start doing our thing, and then someone whose job it is to write tickets starts handing out tickets. And then we say, no, don't agree. We want you to prove it in court, as is your right whenever you get a ticket. And suddenly we're in court, and now it all is at 10 paces. Whereas the conversation needs to happen with the minister, someone who can actually set policy, minister or the government. And when you're a startup, it's pretty hard to get those meetings. It's pretty hard to get a meeting with a venture capitalist. It's even harder to get a meeting with a minister to discuss your idea in Australia. It's a lot easier for a big business to get meetings with government than it is with small people with an idea. And so you can wait years. Here in South Australia, we had 1 million people signed up. We had 30,000 Australians making money using Uber, and 2 years passed before the government made a decision on UberX. And that's the sort of momentum you need before you can start to get attention, unfortunately. So what I'm looking for is just more open and accessible government. When you've got a new idea, there's a place to go to make your case. And the instinct is to say yes rather than no by default.
Look, on that note, Dave, we have to wrap up because we're running out of time for coffee break, but we'll have you back on the panel in just a few moments. So thank you. Please welcome,
You bet.
and thank you to David. Thank you. Coffee sir.